So you want to give me $500 for my beat that's selling well, and you want to take all of my rights, my master and my underlying composition. So even if the song takes off, it's not my song anymore. It's not my beat anymore. It looks like we're recording. Peace, what's going down, everyone? It's DJ Payne 1. I'm joined by Dame Ritter. This is the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast powered by BeatStars. We're live with our MEC sessions twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They're completely free. You don't have to sign up for anything. Just check us out, musicentrepreneurclub.com or beatstars.live at 3 p.m. on Mondays and Thursdays. Dame, how are you feeling about episode 93? That's the year we were both born, right? 93?
I wasn't born.
Just go with it. Just go with it.
Okay, sure. Yep. I'm feeling good. To be honest, Payne, I was going to try to hit you with an April Fool's joke today, but I didn't feel like it would go over well. For people that don't know, we record these on Thursdays and we're dropping them on Monday. So today is actually April 1st.
Wait, so what does that mean? Either the joke was not good or it was just really cruel. It has to be one of the two.
I didn't have a good one. I didn't feel like I had a good enough one that would like be cool and not like, oh, that was lame. So I just decided not to do it.
I told my friend I was at the county building handling something and he just laughed at me earlier this morning. So I guess he saw through the joke. But yeah, I didn't plan for it. I wish I had. Yeah. So
I don't know. Anyway, today, a little overwhelmed this week. Got a bunch of stuff going on, but the show must go on. The podcast must go on, and looking forward to it. This is actually something I enjoy, so I don't mind doing it even when things get overwhelming. So yeah, man, feeling good. 93.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing that we got there. So to commemorate the 93rd episode, I got an email. I want to get your impressions on it.
Okay.
Especially in light of our conversations with Caleb Hearn and with Carl Folks about what is his name? Jacob Goldman?
I remember you getting it wrong. But I can't remember what his name was now. I just remember.
That's how your memory works. You remember when I fuck up, but okay. So just the rundown is that there was a gentleman whose name may or may not be Jacob Goldman, who was what we're calling poaching beats. So he would see a song take off, he would find the beat, and if the beat hadn't been exclusively sold, he would buy the beat exclusively so he could own half of the song that was now going viral. And then he would have a bunch of leverage and potentially, I don't want to say extort, but kind of maybe extract money out of the artist, or at very least use that as leverage to try to manage the artist and get even more stake in their music careers. And for Caleb Hearn, that was a negative situation, but it eventually became a positive. Anyway, so with all that, we were talking about the topic of producers selling exclusives, and what ended up happening in that case, in the case of Caleb Hearn's song, the Jacob Goldman guy contacted the producer of his viral track and offered him, what did we say it was, $1,500 or something around the $1,500 mark, for a complete buyout, which means both copyrights, the producer's copyright to the master recording and the underlying composition, were sold to this Jacob guy. That means no matter how big the song gets, and the song was getting big, millions of streams, it's generating royalties. That means the producer gets none of those. If Caleb were to get signed to Universal tomorrow with that beat, which he's not because he had to remake the beat or reconceptualize it because of the situation. But if he had gotten signed to Universal and they purchased that single for, $50,000, then the producer's not entitled to half of that. The producer gets nothing. Jacob Goldman, who bought the rights, is entitled to that money. So we talked about that a lot. And this morning I get an email and the subject line has the word exclusive in it. And I'm always just kind of weary of selling beats exclusively for a lot of reasons. But anyway, it's this guy that I've never heard of. He's from another country, and he's talking about how they're building a new beat selling site, which is obviously in competition with BeatStars. So already I'm kind of just not into it. And he offers me $1,000 for an exclusive beat with a hook that was written by a collaborator of mine. So I would be splitting this with her. So I'd be getting $500 for this. And he says, for our platform, we need a 100% buyout of rights. Otherwise, we can't use it for our platform. So if nothing else was a red flag, that certainly is a red flag. So you want to give me $500 for my beat that's selling well, and you want to take all of my rights, my master and my underlying composition. So even if the song takes off, it's not my song anymore. It's not my beat anymore. And I think a lot of producers would say, yeah, I want that money. I want that 500. And to put things into perspective before you respond, Dame, because I do want to get your opinion of this kind of platform and this kind of pattern of ownership moving forward. I looked at the stats because it's a relatively new beat that I uploaded that they want to buy. The gross amount that it's generated is nearly 1,000. So for me to give it all up and lose my rights to it for a $500 split when all is said and done isn't at all smart from a business standpoint. If I had just uploaded the beat yesterday and it had gotten 0 sales, maybe I would scratch my head and I mean, I wouldn't, but I can see how another producer would say, okay, well, it hasn't generated any money. I'm not a top seller. I want this quick 500. I want this quick 1,000, whatever the case is.
What if you uploaded the beat a year ago and it didn't have any sales?
Yeah, I think there are conversations to be had with oneself. It's still one of those things where, as someone who's I don't know if you do investing. Do you ever invest?
I used to more actively. Recently, did a little crypto, but yeah.
So the crypto is a good analogy. I think all investments are a good analogy to intellectual property, because and I'm not going to get into NFTs, but I feel like NFTs have kind of brought this concept of valuation to the forefront. So when we make a beat, right, it doesn't necessarily have any intrinsic value, right? Like the value is in what people see it as being worth. So I can set the value to my beats at 10,000 each for a non-exclusive license, and no one's going to pay that. If the perceived value is, $200 for a lease, then I'll get that. But it depends on the quality of my music. It depends on how it sounds. It depends on how it makes people feel. It depends on the strength of my brand. It depends on a lot, right? So for me, when I think about investing, like I bought some crypto as well, right? And I'm actually ahead on it, but some weeks it's up, some weeks it's down, and it's kind of like you can look at it as a day trader where you're just buying and selling right away, or you can sit on an investment. I don't know much about investing. This is just an analogy, but some investments, like real estate, for example, you sit on for a while and then eventually it appreciates in value and you sell. So even if a beat hasn't sold for a year, what makes me weary of someone coming and saying, well, I'll just buy it full buyout for $1,000. What makes me wary is that they're now placing a higher value on it. And so I'm reluctant to sell that beat to them exclusively because if they see some value in it, maybe it's just a matter of time. But I think everyone's situation is different, right? If you're desperate for money and if your cost of living is lower, I'm not going to be mad at you for taking the 500 or the 1,000, but you might regret it in the future.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that possibility. But let me pose another scenario. Because how long does it take you to make a beat on average?
Well, this one was different because this was a collab between.
All right, just a normal beat. How long?
Yeah, let's just say 5 hours for this one with the hook and everything all said and done.
Okay, so is that average for you? Average 5 hours to make a beat?
Let's say 4.
Okay, 4 hours. So let's just say you can make 2 every day, and let's just say there's a scenario where you wouldn't get paid any additional royalties, but for sure that you can get $1,000 every time you make a beat. Would you be okay with just consistently making beats? Say your next 100. So for the next 50 days, you make 2 beats a day and you can get $100,000. Would that be an offer that you would entertain?
Let me open my calculator, damn. I love because you come up with these crazy scenarios that will never in a million years happen.
But that's what artists are doing. Like sometimes you have the data.
Yeah,
right?
that's $100,000 for in the next 50 days. If I made $100,000, yeah, I would do it, and probably most certainly if anyone, because that's 50 freaking beats. If 5% of them became hit songs, I'd be kicking myself. But at least I'd have $100,000.
But I mean, to me, that's not. I mean, you're making. Sometimes people are comparing like the best case scenario to what they have right in front of them. Like, and sometimes you're gonna miss. Sometimes you're gonna, sell something and it's gonna hit big. And sometimes you're gonna sell something and it's not gonna do anything. And probably the latter is gonna happen more than it hitting big. So, if you're been in the game for a minute, obviously you have beatstars, which is great. So you can kind of look at the data and be like, okay, well, this beat is sold this much. I've already made $1,000 on it in 2 months. No, I'm not going to sell it for $1,000 because for the next year, I'll probably make $3,000, $4,000. So we have that data to make an educated valuation on that particular beat. If you're a producer that doesn't have any sales history, you're not working with any big artists, you don't have any placements, then we're in a different conversation, because $1,000 for 4 hours, I mean, that's lawyers. That's lawyer status right there, right? Kind of.
Well, I took an IQ.
Yeah, cheap lawyer. That's a cheap lawyer salary, right? Because $250 an hour. That's probably at the lower end of a lawyer. But
lawyers are making $100,000 in 50 days. Maybe some of them, maybe in New York.
Like top lawyers are probably like 500, 1,000. Well, top lawyer like 1,000 or more an hour. But it typically maybe like 400, and I think my lawyer is like 400 an hour. So making 2 beats a day. And to be honest with you, like a lot of the producers that have told me before aren't spending 4 hours on a beat. I know that,
right.
They're different. So they're actually making beats quicker than that. So, sometimes you just have to go with your strategy, go with your data, analyze like what you're really working on and what the real potential is of your music. Again, if you're not getting that many placements and not that many sales on BeatStars, and that somebody might get that email and be like, well, how many can I send you? Because I'll send you 100 of them and I'll get $100,000 real quick, because I'm not seeing that, I haven't seen it yet. And I don't anticipate seeing it in the next year. And if one of those songs pops, but you can't really worry about that. That's how I would look at it.
A couple of things came up in my head though. I want to know what their revenue model is. If they're spending $1,000 per track, they have to be flipping them somehow. Did I say 100,000? If they're spending $1,000 per track.
But is that your concern though? Like if I can do more with your music than you're capable of doing because you don't have the relationship or because you don't have the distribution platform or what have you. Like I mean, I would want to know that because I'm curious, but that's the value that they're adding, I would assume. Like I have to value what I have. You know, and again, sometimes we're wrong on our decisions, and but we have to live with that. And sometimes we'll be right. And hopefully over the course of years, you know, it kind of balances out the wrong versus right.
I mean, I'm curious to know what their revenue model is, just out of curiosity, because I want to. This is my career field, so I want to know. But in addition, do you think that there could be a negative impact overall? I can't. So here's why I don't feel a way about their revenue model, because if their overhead per beat is $1,000, it's not like they're turning around and selling the beat for $5. You know, so it's not devaluing production. If anything, they're going to try to triple or quadruple their investment, maybe more.
Well, they're making a bet, right? And their bet can be, they have data on their side as well. I mean, this could be a new business, and they think that paying $1,000 for a beat is going to be profitable for them. But what if their business flops? They're making a bet too. Right. All it is we have to make educated bets, because you could sell. So you can sell that beat for $1,000. Now you have the $1,000. You go buy Bitcoin. When you buy Bitcoin, you're buying it from somebody. Right. Let's just say Bitcoin goes up 100x. The person that sold you made that same decision that you with the beat is making potentially. Right. We just have to make educated bets in this industry, and we have to analyze our personal situation. We have to use data. These songs are just simply investments, right? So the person that sold me Bitcoin, if it goes up 100x, he or she might be kicking themselves. If it goes to nothing, they're going to be celebrating.
I need to check what Bitcoin's at today. Let me see. Well, my phone's off.
It's like,
yeah, because some days I check and I'm like, damn, I just lost $1,000. This isn't fun. And then the next day I'm like, yeah, I'm up $1,000. But yeah, I think that's, someone asked me recently. It was actually shout out to Carly from BeatStars. It was on one of her Zoom calls. Someone asked me what I thought about NFTs, or if NFTs are the future. And what I think is useful just about the conversation surrounding NFTs is precisely what you're saying. Now we're kind of being forced to look at our intellectual property as investments, and we kind of already should have been doing that, you know, and everything is a bet. But the part that's missing is the data. We're not just making, like, no one is just making bets, maybe initially with cryptocurrency, but the stakes were so low for the people making those bets. Nowadays, when you're talking about your music career, or you're talking about investing and trading, no one's just guessing and throwing their money around, just shrugging their shoulders. There are data, and people are making educated, data-driven guesses as to what they need to invest in. And for us as beat makers, we can do the same thing with our beats. You have to just kind of isolate the business element in your career. Take away all the emotions of making beats. Take away all the personal connection to the beats that you make, and just look at it from a strictly business sense. You're generating investment opportunities. You're generating assets every time you make a beat, and that asset has value, and that value goes up. Sometimes the value goes down. Sometimes the value doesn't seem to go anywhere for a long time. But I guess your approach depends on your evaluation of your future, your guesses. How do you value yourself? How do you think your stock as a producer is going to go a year from now? Because if you kind of have low projections for yourself, sell all the exclusives you want for the low. But if you really feel like maybe that you're just on the horizon, on the verge of really creating a lucrative business for yourself, maybe don't do that, and get some data and make a more informed choice. And I think, you know, NFTs are just a more oh God, they're just, you have to look at them as assets. You have to, because that's those are the data that they bring to the forefront. When you're just licensing a beat online, you might not even be thinking in those terms, but maybe you would agree, Dame. I think we should be looking in those terms. All artists should be. Artists should be looking at their merchandise like that. Artists should be looking at their physical releases like that. They should be looking at their Patreons and membership platforms the same way.
Yeah, I just don't want any of these negative stories to continue to scare artists or producers. Like, just look at the data. You understand your situation. I'm sure, I would even guess that 90% of producers would be happy with would be extremely happy with a situation where you can make 2 beats a day, make $2,000 a day. Like that I'm sure most producers listening to this would be like, I don't care what happens to the music after that. If I can get $2,000 a day, like, I'm happy making 2 beats a day, making $2,000 every single day.
Okay, well, damn, that's $700,000 a year. So, like,
you're just doing it one time, but I would go back to them and be like, hey, maybe that's in the negotiation. Like, hey, I probably wouldn't do this for 1 beat, but I could do a batch of beats. I'll give you 10 beats for $10,000. And you pick something that's just sitting in your folder that collecting dust. And all I'm saying is it's you just have to do your own analysis, and that $1,000 for a beat sounds pretty good to most cats coming up.
The real takeaway here is that I just need to forward you the email so you can negotiate on my behalf, and then let me know when I have a $10,000 offer.
Right. Well, did you go back to him and say, hey, how many? I don't think I'd do this for 1 beat, because, well, I don't know why you would. If you do it for 100 beats, I don't know why you wouldn't do it for 1. But,
well, I wouldn't do it for this beat just because.
For that. No, okay. I mean, it makes sense because, again, you have the data, and you are a well-established producer that's been doing it for over a decade. So, your analysis is going to look different than somebody that's a little less seasoned.
Well, that's my point. That's where the NFT conversation comes in, because it's kind of becoming this trendy thing where everyone's like, oh, I can make a ton of money off an NFT. And it's like, you can't just make money because it's an NFT, right? Because the value has to be there. That's what I'm talking. So it's like it's a parallel to just a producer saying, you know what, I'm going to put out a sample pack as an NFT. And because it's an NFT, I'm going to make a killing because Illmind did it. No, Illmind has a very valuable brand, and he's had a valuable brand for decades. And so you can't just do that. It's the same thing with like a producer going online and saying, I'm just going to upload a beat to YouTube and I'm going to sell it for 10,000 because that's what I think it's worth. You're not going to probably sell that beat for 10,000 because you just haven't created the value, and the value comes from outside. It's not valuable just because you say it is. It's valuable because the people assign that value to that product. So that's why the NFT conversation brings these conversations to the forefront and kind of forces us to think of our value as creators, and it forces us to think of our art as assets. And a lot of us don't want to think of our art as assets. We want to think of it as art. We want to think of it as not having value. We want to think about it as invaluable. When in reality, if we're in the business of selling art, we have to have that conversation with ourselves.
Yeah, and I would also just mention another reason that Illmind is doing so well is because he's really like getting involved in the crypto community. It's not just something that he's looking at as a come up, even if he is on the low, like inside, like he's doing a great job at like learning about the community. I saw him post that he is going to be buying NFTs. So he's also a purchaser of NFTs. He really appreciates the culture. And is authentically kind of tapping in. And that's another reason that I think that the crypto community has responded so positively to the stuff that he's doing.
Yeah, he came up with his own cryptocurrency, and it's now at $10 as of this morning, a little over $10 per coin. So that's pretty dope.
Yep. Dope. Well, cool. Did we want to just touch on this? Seems like we can, well, at least for a few days, the Lil Nas X video was trending and was the topic of most conversations on Twitter. So I wanted to talk about that really quick. First and foremost, what was your opinion of the video, Payne?
Did you see his Christmas song?
No, I did not. I did not see his Christmas song.
Oh, it's called Holiday. Holiday. Number one. Wow, who's he signed to? They just kind of gave him a blank check for his video budget, because can we agree that the production value of not only his new video but Holiday, which you haven't seen, was pretty freaking high?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has a huge, but that plays into kind of what I want to talk about, because I saw a lot of comments that were calling him a creative genius. And to me, I definitely see some creativity in the video. Not a fan of the video myself, if that's how you want to represent things. I'm a fan of letting people kind of do what they want. So I have no issues with the imagery. It's not for me. I don't need to watch it. Everybody has a choice.
But you watched it, right?
Yeah, I watched it. I was curious. There was enough people tweeting about it that I was like, all right, let me see what's going on. And I have a friend that I went to college with. I guess she did his pole dancing choreography. So I just wanted to see what she taught him.
That stuff looks difficult, man.
So my issue is, like, to me, it's not genius though. There's definitely some, and I understand the story, of a gay person that's told that they're going to hell their entire life. So now that, like, the video kind of depicts that, and he has the confidence, and I get all that, but I'm not talking about, like, the gay stuff. Like, that's again, if that's what you're into, that's how you want to express yourself, completely fine with me. I
we'll
just
have
don't think
different podcast episodes solely focused on gay stuff.
Sure. I just think that, like, we need to I'm a fan of using our words correctly, like, because I think that a lot of words have just kind of lost their meaning on the internet, and genius is one of them. Like, I don't think it's genius because, in part of what you said, he has a blank check for a budget. I can sit here, if I have a blank check, I can think of, like, anything to do, and I can make it happen because I can just tell people to do it, execute it, no problem. Independent artists don't really have a blank check, or at least I haven't met any independent artists with a blank check. So they're forced to be more creative. And I think part of the creativity for me is doing more with less, and, like, having more impact with less. And with Lil Nas X, he doesn't have less, he has more. So it should have a big impact. Now, how do we measure it? Like, if it goes super viral? This did, but I think he also did some things that were obviously going to get a reaction. Like, there's certain things that we can do in videos that we just know are going to get a reaction because we understand our culture and how they respond to things, right? Like, if there was a naked rapper, like the first naked rapper, it's going to get a lot of views because they're
D'Angelo did that decades ago. Come on.
No, but, like, for real naked. Like, if you...
D'Angelo was for real naked. I mean, you can't really be naked on YouTube, and back then you couldn't really be naked on BET and MTV, but he was damn near naked. He was as naked as you could be.
And everybody is just doing, like, more ridiculous things to stand out. And then once somebody does a ridiculous thing, other people do that ridiculous thing, it becomes the norm. So the next person has to, like, outdo that ridiculous thing. And then everybody does that ridiculous thing, and that becomes a norm. So we're always pushing the boundary of but you can always get views by doing something more ridiculous. Like, Lil Nas X knew that twerking on Satan was going to be something that people talked about. To me, that's not a genius idea. Like,
he was also, like, making out with himself though too.
Yeah, but that
I had to do a double take. I'm like, oh yeah, that's him. How is he? Okay.
Yeah. But so to me, because he has the huge budget, because, just like even when people say Kim Kardashian is a marketing genius, like the things that kicked her career off was a sex tape. Like, any celebrity can drop a sex tape and be the trending top. Now, can they take it as far as Kim did?
Any celebrity?
I don't know. Yeah, any celebrity can drop a sex tape and trend. Like that's guaranteed. Like if you have a sex tape, you're gonna trend on Twitter. For how long?
And for what reason?
That's debatable. But there's just certain things that we know are like, I can run into a store, record myself just running around Target slapping people in the head. That's gonna get more views than this podcast.
Okay, but I think one, we should try that out because we do need more views, and two, I think Lil Nas X is a little higher of a level artistically than smacking people in the head in Target. I'm not saying he shouldn't go to Target and smack people in the head. I'm not saying that.
But that's not what I'm saying. Me personally, I judge part of my judgment on creativity is like the impact that you have versus the resources that you had putting into the project. Like if you only have a little bit of resources, but you're able to make a big splash. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is like, and then I guess if you watch the Lil Nas X and kind of understand I'm not saying it's not creative at all. I'm just not labeling him a creative genius because of that video, because to me, that's if you're willing to do it, if you have the balls to do it, like that's a very like polarizing thing to do.
So what do we call that then?
It's more courageous. To me, it's more courageous than creative. Even some of the shit Hopsin used to do, like it wasn't like Hopsin. To me, Hopsin's most creative video was ironically a video called Kill Her, which was meant for his prior record label owner, but he didn't have much money and he recreated a theme from a scene from Saw, and it looked crazy. Like, and he did it with so little money. So to me, that will always be his most creative video. Some of the other stuff he did, it was just like, I kind of knew. I mean, when you have conversations around race, when you have conversations around religion, it's like, it's going to give you a bigger bump than normal. And not saying that you can't do those things in a creative way and you can't be a creative genius covering those topics. But to me, there's cheat codes. And if you use cheat codes, I'm going to take some of the creative points away for me. It's all subjective, of course. But if you use some of these cheat codes, if you get naked, if you use sex, use polarizing, I kind of take some of the creative points away.
So so sexuality is not creative to you. Can it ever be creative?
No, it can't. No, I'm saying you can cover these topics in a creative way. But to me, like twerking on Satan is not that. Like for me, like I know that it's going to get people talking. It's getting us talking on this podcast, but I look at some independent artists way more creatively because they've done more with less, or they've had more of an impact with less resources. Like I definitely think, Donald Glover's Black in America song is way more creative than Lil Nas X. Lil Nas X understands, he's smart in how he uses social media and he knows how to like get people going. He definitely, his use of social media, I think is genius. Like, because it's so consistent and he knows which buttons to push. So to me, I think from a social media perspective, but that video, because he had a huge budget and because it was something that to me, it was an obvious, like, of course that's going to get a reaction.
Well, to be fair, we don't actually know what his budget was, because he maybe just had people around him who could pull that off and were willing to work for a little less, given that they knew how wide-reaching this video would be. So he I guess he co-directed it, but there were a lot of people. I shouldn't even say a lot. There were 1, 2, 3, 4 producers on that video, and then I didn't realize Take a Day Trip produced the beat. So shout out to them. They're making big money. What was I gonna say? So
I didn't see the exact figure, but I just, in an article that I read, they just said big budget. I have no idea.
I don't always believe every article, especially when they talk about that kind of thing. So just to take you to task. So could a large budget film, for example, be considered genius if it were just a masterpiece in terms of film, in terms of, the aesthetics of film?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying just because you have a big budget you can't be creative. You can. All I'm saying is I put the bar up a lot higher if you have a blank check for what is creative. I would lower the bar for an independent artist that executes something with a much smaller budget but has a big impact.
And this doesn't bother me. None of this stuff bothers me, but you know what I think is a little more problematic than calling an artist a genius is calling something a hit. And the internet loves doing that.
Yeah, I mean, that too. Yeah, I get it. Everybody wants people to click on their things. So we have to kind of hyperbolize and sensationalize things.
Yeah, 30 platinum type beats.
Yeah, so maybe that's what you feel like you have to do, or this is epic, or like, we've totally kind of supercharged words and they don't really mean what they were meant to mean. But yeah, and then the other thing is, it's like, all the conversation is around the visual, and I looked on TikTok. I checked his TikTok and he's like, he's killing it with the promotion on TikTok, and people were remaking, their own videos with the song. So I got to hear the song a lot then, but in terms of what the conversation was about the visual. So I'm curious to see how the song performs. I mean, I think again, because it's being forced down our throats, it's probably on like hella playlist already. So it's going to have a ton of views. But I would always like to see, like, relative to the investment, how songs rank, right? I think that would just be interesting to see, like, how songs, a ranking of songs, but there was some metric relative to like how much was invested into the song. How did this song truly perform?
Okay, so the official Dame stance on Lil Nas X is, in terms of his art, he's courageous, not genius. In terms of his social media, he's genius.
Yes.
Okay. I haven't really. What I like is, I don't know how he does it. Obviously, his art is polarizing. I think all art that's effective has to be polarizing. The greatest artists have always been polarizing.
A lot of yeah. I mean, some art, like, some art to me is not necessarily polarizing. It's just beautiful art. I mean, there's a lot of artists like that. But if that's kind of not a cheat code, but if you understand the polarization of certain things, like, you can get more of a reaction. I mean, that's Hopsin, right? Like, he's a very polarizing artist. When he posts something, there's going to be a shitload of comments. Some think he's the greatest rapper in the world, and the other half think, he's complete cornbag.
Yeah, and that's polarizing. I'm just saying, in the history of art, whether it's music, whether it's poetry, whether it's literature, whether it's dance, the artists that have solidified themselves as historical figures have polarized the planet. I'm willing to bet at least 80% of the time. It's you. What's the bumper sticker? Well-behaved women rarely make history. I'd say non-controversial artists rarely make history. So that's just, I'm not saying, 20 years from now, we're going to be studying this Lil Nas X video. Maybe we will. I don't know. On a cultural level, maybe we will. But I don't know what the hell where I was going with this. It's cool. It's
I mean, it plays a part in a lot. It plays a part in a lot of careers, but there's definitely many successful artists that aren't. I mean, I
no,
don't
but
know.
there's successful, and then there's you can be successful and just make good art. You can make prints of fruit that hotels buy, and you can make a living doing that. But are they going to talk about you in the history books? Probably not.
I mean, is somebody like Beyonce polarizing?
She's done polarizing things.
I don't know. You can reach the top. Like, is Bruno Mars polarizing? Like,
he's done. There are controversial things, but I'm not saying that they're the artists that are making the most impact in a historical sense, because they're highly successful artists. They're very talented. Are they historical figures? I think that's a different conversation. But what, and this is why I just kind of only post positive things on social media now, for a number of reasons, mostly for my spirit. But obviously, because Lil Nas X has polarized an entire generation, probably many generations of people now, with this new video, he's getting a lot of backlash, and that's probably a nice way of putting it. And so when he was trending, he's probably dealing with 100,000, threats and whatever a day on his social media. And somehow he's able to kind of brush it off and make it seem totally ridiculous at the same time in this really concise way. I'm just like, wow, I wish I could do that. But at the same time, people don't care that much about what I do. But yeah, like, I don't know. That goes to your theory that he's a genius with social media. He knows how to communicate effectively, and he knows how to deal with the negativity in what seems to be a healthy way. I'm sure it's not. It doesn't feel that way on his part, because no one can feel good about getting 100,000 hate tweets every 2 hours. But
when you get, if it's 100,000 hate versus a million likes, then you know it's easier to process. If it was 100,000 hates, then I mean he's getting way more supportive comments than negative.
Could be, we don't know.
I mean, you just look at the likes versus dislikes. I mean, there's a lot more people that like it than don't. He did go back and forth with Joyner Lucas, and I thought Joyner Lucas made it a point. Like, it wasn't, he kind of shit. The one comment that I didn't agree with Lil Nas X said is like, he said that something about Old Town Road not being a children's song. He's like, if you listen to the song, it has adultery and I think liquor references. Yeah, but like he paraded that song around school children like himself. So it wasn't like the kids did it on their own. Like, they purposely positioned that song as like a kid's anthem, and maybe the kids or the parents didn't catch the references. But he cannot take no ownership of that when there are, thousands of videos of him going around schools and like playing that song for 5 and 6 year olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, performing it. Like, that's him doing that, like putting himself in that position. So I thought, even though Joyner caught backlash for saying that, I thought it was a valid point. And I think, even if I didn't know old, I never listened to I know the chorus, but I didn't, the verses, I don't listen to the song like that. So
I mean, kids definitely love that song. I really don't think he made it as a kid song.
He may not have made it as a kid song, but he purposely targeted kids, because if it wasn't a kid song, you wouldn't be at elementary schools like doing and like touring. It seemed like there were many videos with him and kids. Like, so if I make something that's not for kids, I'm not going to do a school tour. I'm going to do an adult tour.
Well, if you make something that all of a sudden takes off with young people, are you going to say, you know what, I'm not going to reach out to my fans. I'm going to neglect them because that's not what I intend.
No, I mean, I would not, if I thought it was negative, if I thought something was inappropriate for kids, I'm not going to, me personally, because, you know, I'm not going to continue to shove it down their throats if I feel like it's not appropriate for kids. Well, I thought that song was appropriate for kids. I never read the lyrics like that.
I guess everything's relative, because in the grand scheme of things, that's probably a pretty kid-friendly song compared to a lot of what's out there in contemporary pop and rap music. So I don't know. But now we're getting into the whole, you know, should these popular songs be raising your kids? And I don't know. It strikes me as
everybody's allowed to make their own choices, right? But, you know, for me, like I couldn't have done the same thing without some type of like heads up to the fan base that I built. Like, you know, I think even with yeah, I mean, let's just not get into it. I personally, as an artist, would really, God, what a tough position to be. I'm thinking, what if I made a song that had adult undertones or subtext, but kids loved it, and the label said, okay, you got to perform for these kids, and you're under contract. You kind of have to do it, and then on top of it, I, as an artist, have to perform for kids.
Well, who knows what his booking situation was? I guess we don't know. So that happened. You don't want to neglect your fans, and then on top of it, you also, because you're an adult yourself, and you want to evolve past your first single. How do you do that? Well, still being mindful of that first sort of fan base. I don't think it's an easy conversation. It's probably pretty difficult for all artists to navigate, especially artists who have had a fan base choose them, you know, because I think artists think they choose their fan base, and that's not always how it happens. There are artists, I know I've had conversations with artists personally who say, wow, like a lot of like certain white rappers that I know will say like we have a lot of racist fans. Like, how does that happen? That's fucked up. And I'm like, yeah, it's weird. Sometimes people choose you. That, like, I'd rather have kid fans than racist fans. You know what I mean? But like Cricket, I commented on that on a tweet that we used to.
I think some black rappers have racist fans.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. And it's fans sometimes just choose.
Hopsin being one of them.
Yeah, I know. I read the comments that we get all the damn time. All right, so I think we've over covered this topic and also undercovered it at the same time.
Right. Anyway, maybe we'll pick it up next week, but probably not.
Yeah, it probably, no one will be talking about it next week. There'll be some new controversy for people to be outraged about. Anyway, appreciate you tuning in. This was episode 93 of the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast, powered by BeatStars. BeatStars.live every Monday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dame, you're live today. I'll be live on Thursday. And what else? You can text a number to get alerted every time we go live, so you never miss one of our free music business mentorship programs. What's the number to text?
Yep, text MEC to 844-206-7800. You'll get an alert right before we go live. We make it super easy for you to learn from the people that we have on our platform that really know what they're talking about. So tap in every week.
All right, appreciate you tuning in. Peace.
Peace.